In this video, we'll work on our checkout form and we'll add a custom validator rule. Our form currently has a problem with white space. In the required fields, if we enter only white space, then it passes. Yikes! And let's take a look at this real quick. So we're into our checkout form. We have our customer fields here. And if we simply scroll to the bottom and hit purchase, everything's required. That's good. And now if I simply enter white space here for first name, notice the validation goes away, and a similar thing for last name. Ooh, that's bad. So white space is okay as of now, but it's not really okay. We need to resolve this. We need to fix this. So we can resolve this issue by creating a custom validator. We'll call this validator not only white space. We'll basically check the field value. If it only has white space, then we're going to return an error because it failed. Else we'll return null, meaning that it passed. Alrighty, so here's our development process. So the first thing we'll do is we'll define our custom validator rule. Then we'll specify the custom validator rule for the form controls. And then finally, we'll update the HTML template to display the error messages. Alrighty, step one of defining a custom validator rule. We'll simply define a method in a class. So here I have this class, love to shop validators. And we'll add a method here to not allow white spaces as far as validation. So I'll create this method here, static, not only white space, pass in a form control. That's the actual form control that we're checking on, and it returns validation errors. So if the validation check fails, then we'll return validation errors. If the validation check passes, then we'll return null. And this validation errors is a special object here. It's a map of errors returned from failed validation checks, and it's part of the Angular Forms API. So here I'll just check if the string only contains white space. So I make sure that it's not null, and I check the length by trimming it, checking it to be 0. If so, it's invalid. So we're going to return an error object. So here I say return not only white space true. And then else it's valid, I return null. So a bit more here on this validation error key. The HTML template will check for this error key to see if it needs to display the actual error message. And we'll use this actual key in the template. Alrighty, step 2, specifying the custom validator rule for form controls. So here in our checkout component.ts, we have our checkout form group. We have our customer component that we're creating. We added the validations for required and min length. And now we're going to add our new custom validator, love to shop validators dot not only white space. So that's the actual method name that we're going to use. And we'll see how this maps to our actual class and the method that we defined in the previous step. So that's the connection here between our custom validator method name and a reference here in this coding. Alrighty, in step 3, we're going to update the HTML template to display the error messages. So this is the coding we've seen before. If validation fails, then display the error messages. We have a new entry here. We say or firstname.errors.not only white space. So this is a reference to our custom validation error key from the previous steps. So if you remember in the coding here, we said, hey, it's invalid. We're going to return not only white space true. So that's the actual link between the actual reference here in the template and the actual key. Now, this key that I'm using here, it has the same name as the method for this validation. However, we could use a different key name if we wanted to. We could use something totally different than the method name. But the reason I'm following this approach is because this is the same convention that's used by the Angular development team for all of the built-in Angular validations. The error key is the same as the method name. But again, that's not a requirement, just a convention. Alrighty, this looks really good so far. So let's go ahead and move to the next video and let's start writing some code.